Okay, I'm going to make an attempt to do this video, but I have to do a disclaimer. But first I need something to drink. Give me just a second. Okay. I've suppressed my excitement as much as I could. But it is amazing when you start to have a conversation with someone, a random conversation, that starts off in such a random thing, and how it all ties together, and how it leads to a conclusion. And of course you can see on the screen, we're going to talk about Purim. Barry Scarborough just put up a video about Purim. He was talking about God's roadmap to the end. He did a video about Purim. I watched that video. It was yesterday. Tim Henderson put up a video about Purim, and I'm sure other people are going to also. I am not doing this video based on anyone else's video. I'm doing this based on a conversation me and Fire Girl had last night, and the inspiration that led us to this. And it actually kind of terrified me at first that it's been right in our face the whole time. Now, before I start the video, before I give you guys the information, first I'm going to take a drink of my Diet Coke. Pinky's out. And I'm going to put a disclaimer up. I am not and cannot set a date. I have not heard directly from the Lord. And until I hear directly from Him, I will not set a date. I'm going to show you a series of blocks of information that you need to do your own research on. You do what you will with this information. Now, other people in the other camp over there, they may take this and chop it up and do something with it. I don't care. But I know the truth, and if you're watching the whole video, you'll know the truth too. Is everything in this video fact? No, not every single thing. Some of it is going to be conjecture. But, excuse me, we can take a really in-depth look at this and Scripture and come up with a very, very interesting hypothesis. And that's what we're going to attempt to do today. Now, 2019, if you guys remember 2019, we were like picking days as they were going, just going through them. And by the end of 2019, people were pretty tired of it. It was pretty exhausting. And I pulled away from it. I have since not been paying much attention to, I watched videos, but I haven't been paying much attention to any of the things that were going on, because I know that it's imminent. I know with the signs that we see, and I've done tons of videos on it already this year, what we're looking at and what we could be looking at, and that it's highly likely it's going to happen this year. The one thing I don't want to do is create false hope, but there's a lot of stuff that points to this particular holiday. There's actually a book in the Bible that talks about it. There's several other mentions of it, and it actually kind of funny, but it actually kind of ties to what's been going on, which is even more amazing. So I'm going to make an attempt to put this together in an understandable fashion. It's probably going to be all over the place, but if you can bear with me, you might end up with quite a shocking revelation. Okay, let me go. Okay, so here's the conversation we had. And this is with Fire Girl for Christ. Hold on just a second. Okay, they're out. This is with Fire Girl for Christ. And I want to read you some of this conversation. I was going to screenshot it and do pictures, but I want to get this video out. It's already 2 o'clock, so. We were talking about Jennifer Frazier. We're on WhatsApp. We're working into communication so we can lift each other up. Jennifer's been kind of suffering here lately. Well, if anybody wants to connect with me on WhatsApp, let me know. So we're talking about getting all of us connected together. Then Fire Girl tells me about a dream. She says, I got a question for you. Brother Chad dreamed of the word ice cat and the Russian bear. Now, I'm assuming she's talking about Chad at Watchman on the Wall 88. So I Googled it because it was very unusual to me, but curious. It has to do with some kind of radar tracking the atmosphere. Ever heard of it? Also, their next big meeting is on my birthday, 3/25, somewhere I've never heard of. Longyearbyen, Svalbard. I know it was just a dream he had, but this seems too coincidental. Plus, his weather dreams have come to pass in the past. Actually, the weather actually is interesting because it plays a part in this. We're in a white squall warning now. I could be wrong, of course, about the other thing. It's just very intriguing. If you have time, check it out and give me your thoughts. Apparently, they're all over, including Norway, which made me think of the 90-year-old woman's prophecy. Remember that prophecy? Because that's where she lived. Just a thought. This is tied to HARP. Absolutely. There's a technology that they use called HARP. We have one here in Texas. They turned it on a couple years ago and made the news because it made a circle of storms, perfect circle. Well, they do it up in Antarctica. They turn this thing on, and what it does, it's hundreds of thousands of volts. It throws the ionosphere way up in the air, and all the surrounding weather sucks in and fills in that void. Watch where we go here. So we had this conversation. I told her Svalbard is in Norway, I think. I've heard of it. The atmosphere tracker sounds like HARP. Let me do some research. Email you tomorrow. Well, tomorrow, no. It happened right then. Crap, that's where the global seed vault is. We go on, we go on, we go on. All right. Actually, I'm talking to her right now. Okay. So let's start with Purim. What is Purim? Purim is a holiday that the Jews celebrate, and it comes from the book of Esther, and it celebrates them having victory over their accusers and their destroyers. All this takes place in Iran, of all places, and I'll show you that. It's kind of funny. Who is Esther? Esther is a Jewish queen. She actually replaced Queen Vashti as that king at that time as his queen, because she was more beautiful, and the other queen was, I guess, a prude. I don't know. So she was a Jewish queen married to a Gentile king. There's a lot about this that ties in with all this stuff, and I hope I can show that to you guys. So Purim this year is going to begin on March 9th at sunset and end on March 10th at nightfall. There's a lot of weird stuff about how they celebrate this thing. Anyway, we'll get into that in here in a minute. I think I put this together right. So, Longyearbyen, urban East Norway. It's actually the capital of Svalbard. This is actually an island out in the ocean, north of Norway, off the coast of Russia, which also ties together. So, known as Longyear City until 1926, the town was established by and named after American John Monroe Longyear, whose Arctic Coal Company started coal mining operations in 1906. Operations were taken over by Store Norsk Spitsbergen Coal Company in 1916, which still conducts mining. The town was almost completely destroyed by the German Kriegsmarine on 8 August 1943, but rebuilt after the Second World War. Historically, Longyearbyen was a company town, but most mining operations moved to Svigruva during the 1990s, and production ceased in 2017 due to immense financial losses suffered by Skansk since 2014 due to the market conditions. Meanwhile, the town has seen a large increase in tourism and research. This includes the arrival of institutions such as the University Center in Svalbard, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, and Svalbard Satellite Station. The community is served by Svalbard Airport and Svalbard Church. The Svalbard Satellite Station, that's IceCat. IceCat is HARP. They are basically looking at how they can change the weather. Watch where we go with this. It's really weird where this ends up. And we're going to go into the book of Esther too. Okay. This is the Svalbard Seed Vault. If you've been paying attention to any news from different areas, you'll know, or if you've studied this at all, you'll know that the Svalbard Seed Vault, it's a underground facility. It stays at a constant temperature, and they store seeds from all over the world there. Super cold under here. And they're able to do this because seeds, when you keep them down below freezing, don't germinate. They can keep almost indefinitely. This is why a lot of farmers, you'll see them, they'll plant seeds, and if they have extra seeds left over, they'll put them in bags and they'll put them in the freezer. because it keeps them from germinating, and it keeps them from drying out and dying. Because you can leave a seed out too long, and it'll die and won't grow anymore. So this is good technology to do this. This is actually old technology too, very old. Well, the problem is that they've been warming up a lot lately, and they think that this whole seed thing is in jeopardy because the ground is warming up unnaturally fast. And this plays a part in all this. It's warming up unnaturally fast, and they're not 100% sure why. I'm going to show you why. But they're struggling with how they're going to deal with this, because this is a very large facility underground, like huge. If you ever see this whole mountain this thing is dug into, it's the whole mountain. It's big, big, big. There's videos online. In fact, this website may even have videos where you can go look and see what the inside looks like. So, yeah, seeds from all over the world, everywhere. Now, what's important about this seed vault? Well, if there's ever any famines that are nationwide, continent-wide, or worldwide, the seed vault can counter these famines because they have seeds stored. Tons of them. Tons and tons and tons, and metric tons of them. So if there's ever a famine, this will counter that famine. They will be able to change the course of what this famine goes. We know there's going to be famines and pestilences in the tribulation. Well, if there's seeds there, that's going to counter the famine, right? Look at all the grasshoppers and all the stuff that they're eating over there. And there's guys that have lost 90% of their crops from these locust swarms that are in Africa and all that. Well, how are they going to replace this? Because some of that they have to let germinate to get seeds to plant the following year. They don't just run down to Home Depot and buy seeds off the cardboard shelf. They got to save their own. So you'll have to go to a place like this to get seeds to replenish these crops. In the advent of something like that, and it's unrecoverable. Well, if you destroy the seed vault and all the seeds, you don't have anything to stop the famine. I think this is all part of the plan, guys. I think this actually plays a big part in this, of this being wiped out, because we know, and if this video comes together right, I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to show you the time gap I think I found between the rapture and the tribulation, because that also ties into it. So if they get rid of this seed vault, they can't counteract the famines. Many of these famines are engineered. They want there to be famines like this. This all goes back to them playing with the weather. Too much water, too much rain, not dry enough, too dry, which is what Ice Cat does. We're going to get to that. It's really incredible how all this ties together, and how the Holy Spirit leads you down. Sometimes you crawl down a rabbit hole, sometimes you fall down a rabbit hole. Okay, Ice Cat Scientific Association. They have an upcoming event here. You see it's all pretty, it's cool, it's neat, it's all the stuff that they do. You click on the About Us tab, and it goes into IceCat is an international scientific association with member institutes in several countries. We conduct ionospheric, same thing HAARP does, and atmospheric measurements with radars. As an example, we can observe effects to the aurora borealis or the northern lights. We operate in 3 countries, Finland, Norway, and Sweden. There's something about Sweden you guys need to know. I covered it before, but I'll just tell you before we go any further, because I'll probably forget. There's a place in Sweden where there's a facility that does some really interesting things, and they were in the news a lot in 2019, and we've since not talked about them much. But they also play a part in this, and it's called CERN. CERN has been doing all kinds of weird experiments. CERN has created localized storms over their facility because it's 300 feet underground, a great big circle. It's a super collider. In the process, and this is a little known fact, in the process of building this facility, up to 300 feet underground, they were finding ruins of an old temple. Turned out it was a huge temple. Turned out it was the temple of Apollos, or Apollyon. Well, who's going to come out of the bottomless pit when it's opened? Apollyon. The temple that they excavated and removed where it was at, when you go back in history, thousands of years, that exact same spot has always been referred to and known as the cap to the bottomless pit. Right where that temple sits, right where CERN is. Geneva's right next to it. Guess what comes out of Geneva? All your AI tech, all your drone tech, all of your radar tech, all comes from Geneva, Switzerland, which is right there next to CERN. So remember the whole locust thing? And I showed you how the drones look like locusts? It's all connected. Every bit of it's connected. So when you start to see these things, it's like, oh, wait a second. That's weird. Anyway, I'm going to try to contain my excitement here. And all our facilities are located north of the Arctic Circle. We are associated with our radar antennas that are located in Kiruna, Sweden, Sodankia, Finland, Tromsø, Norway, and Longyearbyen, Svalbard. In Tromsø, we also have combined ionospheric heating and shortwave radar facility. They heat the ionosphere. Why? To create weather. Watchwoman 65 did a video yesterday saying there was a storm that was causing the jet stream to pull away from the U.S., and it was reaching speeds of 747 miles an hour. Guess where it was going over? Norway, right where this place is. So, craziness. Okay, so, oops. Stop it. Mission statement. The IceCat Scientific Association exists to provide scientists with access to incoherent scatter radar facilities of the highest technical standard. By developing and operating continuing program of observatory measurements, yet they have a facility that does heating of the ionosphere. That's not observatory. In cooperation with other ground-based and spaceborne instruments as a part of a global network of incoherent scatter radars, the IceCat Scientific Association seeks to provide a long-term database of ionospheric measurements of the highest quality. By supporting and operating the particular experiments of individual and groups of visiting scientists, which means they do literally anything if it's other people, IceCat seeks to allow its users to address the widest possible range of research activities, particularly in areas of geospace and basic plasma physics, basically affecting weather and Earth dynamics. They're probably the reason why the North Pole's switching positions heading towards Siberia. The actual North Pole, if you guys didn't know, I did a story on it last year. The actual North Pole has been swinging and moving towards Siberia at 55 miles a year. Our poles are shifting. By providing leadership in the design and construction of hardware and software to support these goals, the IceCat Scientific Association seeks to provide educational opportunities for young scientists and to foster appropriate knowledge, transfer, and economic impact. By developing and maintaining a well-rounded space strategy, IceCat seeks to provide a framework for the development of IceCat-supported science and for the evaluation and development of scientific programs within the overall field. That sounds fabulous. So you can go read what all their other stuff is here, but there's some interesting wording in here. Scientific strategy to understand the various forms of coupling between the sun, the interplanetary medium, the terrestrial magnetosphere, ionosphere, and atmosphere of the high latitude regions, natural and anthropogenic forcing. Forcing. You can go look what that means, and you might have your eyes opened. And related plasma physics and dynamics, and to achieve the necessary knowledge, understanding, principles, and techniques which would allow mankind to monitor, predict, and mitigate such processes within the next 30 years. You know what that word mitigate means? Affect, change, which means they can, if there's a massive storm that's going to be going over, they can shut it down. If these guys, in where they're at, you go look at a world map and look where we're at, look where they're at. If these guys are turning this thing on and changing the ionosphere, they're the reason why we have all this weather coming across us that we shouldn't have right now. Go look at where the jet stream is pulling from. Okay. This is spacebattles.com. This is a blog or a vlog or whatever it is. An interesting comment was made here. China and Russia are working to modify Earth's atmosphere. Take this with a huge grain of salt. Well, America's been doing it. You already know it's been happening. So this guy puts a rather large thing. China and Russia have modified an important layer of the atmosphere above Europe, the ionosphere, to test a controversial technology for possible military application. According to Chinese scientists involved in the project, and you remember, IceCat says we bring other people in who want to try experiments. other scientists, not just them. A total of 5 experiments were carried out in June. One, on June 7th, caused physical disturbance over an area as large as 126,000 square miles, or kilometers, 49,000 square miles, or about half the size of Britain. The modified zone, looming more than 310 miles high over Vasilsursk, a small Russian town in Eastern Europe, experienced an electric spike with 10 times more negativity charged subatomic particles than surrounding regions. Do you remember the supposed EMP that was set off over Syria? Could it have been a miniature version of this? In another experiment on June 12th, the temperature of thin ionized gas in high altitude increased more than 100 degrees Celsius, 212 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a lot, because they're into remember that one facility does heating of the ionosphere? There you go. Because of the particle flux. The particles or electrons were pumped into the sky by Sura, an atmospheric heating facility in Vasilsursk built by former Soviet Union's military during the Cold War. So now we know who this organization is based out of. The Sura base fired up an array of high-powered antennas and injected a large amount of microwaves into the high atmosphere. The peak power of the high radio frequency waves could reach 260 megawatts, enough to light up a small city. They're playing with weather. They're trying to affect things. They're creating famines. They're doing everything they can to create the stuff that's going on. Now, God uses his creation to serve his will. We're seeing the effects of what these guys are doing around the world, because you know what they're doing in the northern hemisphere will affect the southern hemisphere. And we don't know actually how many facilities they have. There's so many deserted places out there that they do experiments on. So, and now, like I said, this is just a comment. You can do all your research on this and look this up on your own. Current severe weather around the world. Now, what I was trying to do was I was trying to find where the jet stream was being negatively affected the other day when Watchwoman 65 had done her report on that. And I couldn't find a lot. What I did find, though, come on, this mouse. What I did find was that the area affected was right over there on that part of Russia where Norway is. Okay, this is Svalbard. Zoom in here. And you can see Longyearbyen. That's right there. So that's Svalbard. This is where that facility is. That's where the seed vault is. That's where they're doing all that. There's Greenland to the left. Well, if you know anything about where the North Pole is and all that kind of stuff, Greenland was where the actual magnetic north was. Well, if they're playing around with the ionosphere over here, now that they said the North Pole is moving, well, if it's going from Greenland, where's it going? Oh, look, there's Russia. And it's heading to Siberia. Our poles are changing. Our poles are shifting. Look what else they can affect. If they're playing around with the weather up there, they can also mess all the weather up down here. What's been going on all over this region in weather, especially Iran, Kazakhstan, China, all that stuff. So, how interesting the location of this and what it's affecting and what they're doing. Now, right over here, the USA. And that jet stream is being just drug out from here. Why? Well, because they're playing with the weather up here, causing all kinds of problems. Okay, so now you know all about that. That got us into this, led us to this, which led us to start thinking, okay, well, what's going on here? Now, the other part of the conversation that led us let's see. So as we're talking last night, told her I was going to dig into it, I wanted to see what was going up. There was... Let me get back to where we were talking here, and I'll show you how this transitioned. So I was posting links about Ice Cat, where it was, about the seed vault is warming up. She found that too. Heard it on Marfugal. Gave her a thing for Longyearbyen. Famines, got to wipe out seeds so they don't try to counter the predicted famines. She said she was seeing a pattern here with birthdays that related to different dates that were going on here. Now you're going to see, this is the shift in the conversation. She says 320, or no, she said, yeah, I said it's 325. Purim is the 9th and the 10th. She said, that's my birthday. Ding, 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 we have a winner. Now, that was all the stuff that we were reading up there before. Then I told her, and this is at like 11:20 last night, I told her I was just watching God's Roadmap to the End, and he was talking about Purim being 40 days past the peace deal announcement on 31st, and how important 40 days is in the Bible. Moses fasted for 40 days a couple times. Jesus fasted for 40 days. There were a lot of things going on where 40 days became a specific day count for certain things. And it actually becomes quite interesting how elaborate they get into that. So the peace deal was announced on the 28th, and on the 31st we found out there was a two-state solution. When you go ahead 40 days, that puts you at Purim. She said, this is so interesting because I was reading Esther the other day and felt like there was something important the Lord wanted me to know. We had not talked about the book of Esther at all to this point. I was like, holy crap, I'm reading Esther too, because of God's roadmap to the end. Now we have the whole 40 days in Jonah. Remember Jonah? He was sent to Nineveh, said, hey, in 40 days y'all are about to get wiped out. So I made a mistake when I first commented to her. I told her it was about Esther being a Gentile queen, but it's the other way around. And she was like a type of rapture. I was like, well, maybe. So I'm not going to be dogmatic. I'm not going to set a date. Holy for Holies Batman, could we actually be seeing something here? Absolutely we could. Dig a little further. I'm going to dig into it. She finds an article. Doomsday Vault town warming faster than any other on Earth. That's Longyearbyen. They're warming up. It's messing with the thing. The author of this article's name is Sarah Lazarus. The dead, this plays a part in it. That's why I mentioned it. This plays a part. Remember Lazarus? Called her from the dead? Okay. I looked up Purim. This was me commenting. I looked up Purim Open Bible, and one of the scriptures is Revelation 12, 1 through 17. There's a harpazo in verse 5. I did a video on that. In verse 17, she bore the child, and the Greek word for child meant son, and this and this and this, and then the child was caught up to the throne room of God. The word for child there was completely different. In fact, I'm going to show you. Some of y'all may not have seen that video. Okay, we're in Esther. Let me go to Revelation. So, what I did was, in that video, what we're reading here is, this is the woman and the dragon. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then being with child, she cried out in labor, pain to give birth. Another sign appeared in heaven. So John's telling us he's seeing this, celestial movements. September 23rd, 2017, we saw these celestial movements happen. Actually, several people found the dragon. He tail drew a third of the stars, threw them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Then the woman who fled in the wilderness, she was to be prepared by God that it should feed her there 1,260 days. So that's 3.5 years. Now we know a remnant out of Israel, Israel's the woman, the remnant out of Israel is going to go to probably Petra and hide out during the second half of the tribulation. And they're going to be taken care of there. But what I found in verse 5 was so interesting. 3, 4, 5. Let me get rid of all this. Okay, so in verse 5, and she brought forth a man-child. Now the word here is huios, which apparently a primary word, so it's specific, son, sometimes of animals, or maybe a lamb, used very widely in immediate, remote, or figurative kinship, child, foal, son. Now when I read this, I was like, well, that's Jesus Christ. Well, he's the head and we're the body, right? So I went further. Who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, and her child, same thought, same scripture, same verse, teknon, totally different word for child. This means daughter or son, child. Head, body. Her child was harpazoed. This child was harpazoed. Now, if you go back and look when Jesus ascended, the word there used, totally different Greek word. Not even close. He was received into heaven. Here he was, not this child up here. This child down here was harpazoed. It delineates between two different terms for child. The first child wasn't harpazoed, the second one was. The first one is the son. The second one is child, daughters and sons, indicating a group of different kinds of people. They were harpazoed. That's rapture. And what happened after that? They took off and escaped. That's interesting to me. And when I saw that, I was like, whoa, wait a second. So, yeah. When you see stuff like that, it blows your mind. Okay, back to what we were talking about. So I told her about that. She went and looked at it. And I told her I did a video on it. Hopefully she'll watch this, she'll see that, because that was cool to me. A lot of people are like, well, there's nowhere else it's mentioned in there. Well, it's in the book of Revelations, evidently. And, the people, I forgot to show you this. So it says in there, that child was caught up to God and his throne. We go back to Revelation chapter 5. Who's standing around God's throne? Then I looked and I heard the voice of many angels around the throne, the living creatures and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands. The church, pre-trib rapture all day, every day. Deny it all you want to, it won't help. Okay, so we kept talking. Talking. That may be it. Okay. Is Purim mentioned in Revelation? Now I type this in because this is interesting. We go back here to the scriptures. If you're not excited already, you're dead inside. So it was in 8. Okay, Esther saves the Jews. On that day, the king Ahasuerus, which that's the Gentile king, the Iranian king, gave Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. Well, who's Haman? Modern day Haman is Iran. Because I have that one over here. Now, a lot of people are trying to relate it to individuals, but this is modern day Haman. Whoa, check it out. Ancient Haman and the modern day Ayatollah, who's been talking 10 kinds of smack. This ties directly to what's going on with them, and their threats ties directly to the book of Esther. Now we go back to the book of Esther. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. Now, what could we be looking at here that we could liken this after Mordecai, the king, The king we can liken to Iran. Mordecai, we could liken him to Jesus. I'd do a little bit more digging on that. But Esther we could liken to the church, because we're the bride. We're going to dig into this a little deeper. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. So the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai, and Esther appointed Mordecai over the house of Haman. Now Esther spoke again to the king, fell down at his feet, and implored him with tears to counteract the evil of Haman the Agagite and the scheme which he had devised against the Jews. And the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and said, if it pleases the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seems right to the king, and I am pleasing in his eyes. Evidently she was like a knockout beauty. Let it be written to revoke the letter devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to annihilate the Jews who are in all the king's provinces. All Iran's been talking about is we need to annihilate the Jews. Annihilate. We got to annihilate the Jews. Got to wipe them off the face of the earth. For how can I endure to see evil that will come to my people, or how can I endure to see the destruction of my countrymen? Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and Mordecai the Jew, indeed, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him on the gallows because he tried to lay his hand on the Jews. You yourselves write a decree concerning the Jews as you please, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's signet ring, for whatever is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's signet ring, no one can revoke. So they did that. We're going to skip down just a little bit here. By these letters, the king permitted the Jews who were in every city to gather together and protect their lives, to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the forces of any people or province that would assault them, both little children and women, and to plunder their possessions. On one day, in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, this year that's March, a copy of the document was to be issued as a decree in every province and published for all people, so that the Jews would be ready on that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. We know there's going to be war at the beginning of the tribulation, right? Between Iran and the Jews. The couriers who rode on royal horses went out, hastened and pressed on by the king's command, and the decree was issued in Shushan the citadel. So somebody had asked me once, how do you know that's Iran? You didn't watch my video. Susa, also called Shushan, usually referred to as the citadel of Susa, was the capital of the Persian Empire and located in the royal palace belonging to the Persian king, most notably King Xerxes. That's Shushan the citadel right there. Still there. Still exists. To this day. Remember in the book of Daniel? Daniel 8? Remember what happened when I talked about Daniel 8 and all this? I did a bunch of videos on it. Same exact place. Daniel was there in his vision. What happened there? The ancient city of Shushan, also known as Susa, is located on the edge of the modern Iranian city of Shush. It was excavated beginning in the 1890s right through the 1960s. Unfortunately, the site has been heavily damaged by looting, primitive archaeological technique, as well as the war between Iraq and Iran 1980 to 1988. Boom. We're here. Where are we at? Okay, we're here. I think we're here. Okay, back to Esther. So, this is Iran. They're in Iran. This is everything that's going on. So Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, which is the color of the Israeli flag, ironically, with a great crown of gold and a garment of fine linen and purple. Who else wears fine linen? Who else wears fine linen and purple? 19. And to her it was granted to be arrayed in fine linen, clean and bright. Purple is the color also attributed to Israel. He was clothed and robed and dipped in blood. That could be considered purple too. So, wait, 8. Okay. The Jews had light and gladness, joy and honor. We're in Esther 8:16. And in every province and city, wherever the king's command and decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a holiday. Then many of the people of the land became Jews because fear of the Jews fell upon them. So you had Gentile converts because of all this stuff that was going on. Chapter 9. Now in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day, the time came for the king's command and his decree to be executed. On the day that the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, the opposite occurred, in that the Jews themselves overpowered those who hated them. The Jews gathered together in their cities throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus to lay hands on those who sought their harm, and no one could withstand them, because fear of them fell on all people. And all the officials in the provinces, the satraps, the governors, and all the doings of king's work helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell on them. For Mordecai was great in the king's palace, and his fame spread throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai became increasingly prominent. Is he a Jesus character, or a lichen of Jesus character? Thus the Jews defeated all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, slaughter and destruction, and did what they pleased with those who hated them. And in Shushan, the citadel, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. So we go down through a bunch of the people. The 10 sons of Haman, the sons of Hamadatha, the enemy of the Jews, they killed, but they did not lay a hand on the plunder. I wonder why they didn't take anything. That's interesting. There's so much stuff to study in this. All right, so Queen Esther in verse 12, Esther 9:12, and the king said to Queen Esther, the Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the citadel, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is your petition? It shall be granted to you. Or what is your further request? It shall be done. Then Esther said, if it pleases the king, let it be granted to the Jews who are in Shushan to do again tomorrow according to today's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on the gallows. They were already dead, but they're hanging them anyway. So the king commanded this to be done. The decree was issued in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. Maybe they weren't dead. And the Jews who were in Shushan gathered together again on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and killed 300 men at Shushan. But they did not lay a hand on the plunder. The remainder of the Jews in the king's provinces gathered together and protected their lives, had rest from their enemies, and killed 75,000 of their enemies. But they did not lay a hand on the plunder. This was on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th of the month they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews who were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day as well as on the 14th, and on the 15th of the month they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews of the villages who dwelt, listen close, Therefore the Jews of the villages who dwelt in the unwalled towns celebrated the 14th day of the month of Adar with gladness and feasting as a holiday, and for sending presents to one another. Unwalled towns, when Jerusalem dwells without walls, safety without walls, safety and security, sudden destruction. Are you seeing the picture here? I can just see now, we've read all this stuff all this time, I can just see Jesus sitting up there going, it's about time you guys got it. Esther 9:20. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters to all the Jews near and far who were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, to establish among them that they should celebrate yearly the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar, as the days on which the Jews had rest from their enemies, and the month which was turned from sorrow to joy from them, and from mourning to a holiday, that they should make them the days of feasting and joy, of sending presents to one another and gifts to the poor. So the Jews accepted the custom which they had begun, as Mordecai had written to them. Ooh. because Haman, the sons of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to annihilate them, and had cast pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and destroy them. You want to see something cool? I'm going to mark that spot, Esther 9, verse 24. They have cast lots for my people, have given a boy as payment for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they may drink. That's in Joel 3:3. What was Joel 3:3 talking about? Let's go look. The Lord judges the nations. For behold, in those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. They have also divided up my land. Whoa! Really? When did that just happen? A week ago? They have cast lots for my people, have given a boy as payment for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they may drink. And that's actually true. They do that in Islam. Indeed, what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Sidon, and all the coasts of Philistia? Will you retaliate against me? But if you retaliate against me swiftly and speedily, I will return your retaliation upon your head. Philistines? Palestines? Same people. Because you have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my prized possessions, also the people of Judah and the people of Jerusalem you have sold to the Greeks, that you may remove them far from their borders. Behold, I will raise them out of a place to which you have sold them, and will return your retaliation upon your own head. I will sell your sons and daughters into the land of the people of Judah, and they will sell them to the Sabaeans, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken. Proclaim this among the nations, prepare for war. Wake up for the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble and come, all you nations, and gather together all around, because you're mighty ones to go down there, O Lord. Let the nations be wakened and come up from the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there I will sit to judge all the surrounding nations. Listen, this is in the book of Revelations. Put the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, go down, for the winepress is full, the vats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Remember where that is in the book of Revelations? I don't want to mess up my spot. Let's look here. Sickle. Here it is. Revelation 14:14. Then I looked and behold, a white cloud. And on the cloud sat one like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, saying with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud, Thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time has come for you to reap, for the harvest of earth is ripe. He who sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Then another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, who had power over fire, and he cried with a loud cry to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine to the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. So the angel thrust his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. Is this not exactly what's going on here? It's the evil that are on the earth at the end of the tribulation being harvested and taken. Joel 3:14, multitudes in the valley of decision. Now you know where this is. If you didn't know what Jehoshaphat meant, now you know where it is. This is the valley of Armageddon. Big war happening there. Evidently, Jesus is going to be there. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and moon will grow dark. Wait a minute, where did we just talk about that at? Didn't I do that video a little bit ago? No, it was yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, I was comparing Matthew 24. No, that was a different video. That was a video I did for someone else. Sorry. Well, it's showing the difference between Matthew 24:29 and Revelation 12. No, can't remember where it was in Revelation. Anyway, it's talking about two different times where the sun is going to go dark and the moon is going to go dark, and they thought it was the same thing. Turns out it actually was two different events. One's at the beginning of the tribulation, one's at the end, because one, the sun and moon go dark. That's at the end of the tribulation. The other one, the sun is black as sackcloth and the moon is red as blood. So it doesn't actually go completely dark. Or I should just post that video. Okay, so that's the same thing going on here. End of the tribulation. This is the end of the tribulation. The Lord also will roar from Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. The heavens and earth will shake, but the Lord will be a shelter for his people and the strength of the children of Israel. Bam, there it is. How crazy is that? Oh wait, we were in Esther. All right, we're in Esther 9. Whew. Hope this is making sense for everybody, because I'm still struggling with it. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded the letter that this wicked plot which Haman had devised against the Jews should return to his own head, and that he and his sons would be hanged on the gallows. That must play a part in something, hanging on the gallows. So they called these days Purim, after the name Pur. Therefore, because all the words of this letter, what they had seen concerning this matter, and what had happened to them, which we know is good, there's going to be a repeat performance, basically. The Jews established and imposed it upon themselves and their descendants and all who would join them, that without fail they should celebrate these 2 days every year according to the written instructions and according to the prescribed time. That these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, every city, and in the days of Purim should not fail to be observed among the Jews, and that the memory of them should not perish among their descendants. And it hasn't. Then Queen Esther, the daughter of Abihail, with Mordecai the Jew, wrote with full authority to confirm this second letter about Purim. And I still am not 100% convinced that Esther was a Jew, because they refer to Mordecai as Mordecai the Jew several times, but I don't think they refer to Esther as the Jew. I got to do some deeper digging into this. And Mordecai sent letters to all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim, an appointed time, and Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther, and prescribed for them as they had decreed for themselves and their descendants concerning matters of their fasting and lamenting. So the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. Okay. Everybody's putting videos out right now. Watch this. Verse 10. It's only chapter 10 is only 3 verses. The greatness of Mordecai. And King Ahasuerus imposed tribute on the land and on the islands of the sea. Now all the acts of his power and his might, and on the account of the greatness of Mordecai, to which the king advanced him, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Media and Persia, which exists? You can get this book. They have found it. You can buy it online. For Mordecai the Jew was second to King Ahasuerus, and was great among the Jews, and well received by the multitude of his brethren, seeking the good of his people, and speaking peace to all his countrymen. I don't know about you guys, but that just blows me away how this stuff is coming together. All right, we're not done yet. Okay, we are on United with Israel. We were looking at this guy, Haman, how it applies. And, I mean, it all fits. This stuff is all easy to look up. Oh, I was looking up lunar eclipses and solar eclipses. Okay, Dennis Hart, 20 March 2016. He did this in 2016. Purim and Esther, prophetic thoughts. I'm not going to share every bit of this. If it's really long, I don't think it's really long. Nope, it's not. Okay. I want to just show you some of the things that are going on in here, what he came up with. John, many thanks for the continuing riches of 5 doves, including your own thoughts on your own thought-provoking contributions. It has been quite a journey in the past year or two. We're on a threshold of further acceleration. So in 2016, these guys were seeing this. The Feast of Purim will be celebrated on 23-24 March 2016, and is really the last feast before the cycle of the 7 feasts begins again. In view of the recent blood moons, just how important could this Purim be? Now, you remember 2016, a lot of people thought it was going to happen in 2016. They were convinced. Then 2018. More information on Purim is available on kabod.org website, linked to Purim below. So there it is. I'll link this into the description. You guys can go dig deeper into that. I may link all this stuff in there. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to play it by ear. Let the Spirit lead. There are many aspects of Esther and Purim that may be prophetic pointers. I would like to draw out just 4 prophetic pointers, and we'll keep these reasonably short. Purim and casting lots for Israel. Biblical Hebrew meaning of Esther, which is hidden or secret, the hidden bride. Her other Hebrew name, Hadassah and Assad. Vashti, the replaced queen. Let's go into this, because I'm really curious. I haven't read this yet. I'm really curious as to what he has to say. Purim and casting of lots for Israel. So over here you can see Esther 3. When Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow down, he was very angry. But he scorned laying hands on Mordecai, since they had told him Mordecai's nationality. Haman sought to destroy all the Jews of people of Mordecai throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. In the first month, the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, Haman caused Pur, that is, lots, to be cast before him day after day to find a lucky day for his venture, month after month until the 12th month of Adar. In brief, Haman used Pur, or lots, to be cast to settle on a day of destruction for the Jews across the whole widespread kingdom of Ahasuerus. Now, at that time, what they did with kingdoms is, this is the lands I've conquered, and I also own all the lands that I don't know about. So pretty much any land that wasn't conquered by someone else belonged to them, up to and including other continents. Where else do we read about casting lots for the Jews? In Joel 3, 1-3 below, Joel appears to prophesy that the dividing of the land of Israel, and probably of Jerusalem, which was end times, will be the result of a vote of nations rather than bilateral negotiations. Many countries have already passed votes in their parliaments in favor of dividing the small nation of Israel. What just happened January 31st of this year? The Lord God says he will judge nations for their actions. Judgment has been happening, big time. While a two-state solution is favored by most countries, the division of Israel that could happen very soon will simply make the nation of Israel even more vulnerable to being wiped out by its surrounding enemies. Now remember, this is 2016 that he's commenting on this. The intent of the heart of these nations is strongly evident in Psalm 83:4. They have said, "Come, let us wipe them out as a nation. Let the name of Israel be in remembrance no more." Joel 3, "For behold, in those days and at that time, when I shall reverse the captivity and restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and there I will deal with and execute judgment upon them for their treatment of my people and of my heritage Israel." A lot of people out there that are doing this whole replacement theology thing, y'all need to read your Bibles because you're missing the key points. We have not replaced Israel. My heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and because they have divided my land. So what's been done with this peace deal is a negative. It's good for us because this being put in place shows how close we are. It's bad for everyone because they're dividing a land, and intense destruction is going to befall this earth. And they have cast lots for my people. So, biblical meaning of Esther, hidden or secret, the hidden bride. The Persian name Esther appears to mean star, morning star. While I'm not an expert in these matters, the biblical meaning of Esther may be secret or hidden. This meaning does reflect her role as being placed or hidden within the Persian kingdom for such a time as this. Her primary, stop me if any of this is registering with you guys. I'm joking. Her primary purpose was to protect the Jews from extermination at the hand of Haman. I will not go into the details of the wonderful truth of Esther, but it is worth mentioning the cry of her heart. If I perish, I perish. As an aside, This is the reality for many Christians today in countries where persecution is very strong. Are we seeing a link between Queen Esther and the church? We live in a world where anti-Semitism is growing, and we know from prophecy, for example, Jesus in Matthew 24 and Daniel, that the beast and false prophet will try once more to wipe out Jews in the name of Israel. So what is hidden or secret now? My view is that the answer to this question is twofold. The bride of Christ, who will strongly support Israel, go Israel, and an individual prophet, Elijah. How the rapture fits into this is not clear, as Esther points primarily to salvation of the Jews. Malachi 4:5 prophesies the coming of Elijah before the day of the Lord. If this follows the pattern of Elijah, John the Baptist, and Jesus, then this coming would be from relative obscurity. Mordecai appears to reflect the role of the Holy Spirit through an end-time Elijah of the church. That is, guiding and revealing the hidden and secret bride of Christ from across countries and churches to fulfill his eternal purposes for the church and Israel. Could we be working out of the spirit of Elijah? Absolutely we could. Interesting that the name Esther can be rearranged to rest, and the Holy Spirit, brings us rest in his promises. Her other Hebrew name, Hadassah or Assad. I found this interesting. Esther's other Hebrew name is Hadassah, myrtle. Myrtle is used elsewhere in the Bible, I think. Hold on. Well, there's myrtles all over the place. Wow. See how this stuff works, guys? You find a weird word, and it's like, wait a minute, I know that word. So we got Nehemiah, Isaiah, got a lot in Isaiah. Isaiah 41:19, I will plant in the wilderness the cedar and acacia tree, the myrtle and the oil tree. I will set in the desert the cypress tree and the pine and the box tree all together. I don't know if 100% of he's talking about trees there. Isaiah 55:13, instead of thorn shall come up the cypress tree, and instead of the briar shall come up the myrtle tree, and it shall be to the Lord for a name, for an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. Is he talking about trees? It doesn't sound like it. Doesn't sound like it to me. Okay, so I'm going to have to do some deeper digging on that one. There's actually a bunch. No, there's only 6. Oh, looky here. Nehemiah 8:15. And that they should announce and proclaim in all their cities and in Jerusalem, saying, go out to the mountain and bring olive branches, branches of oil trees, myrtle branches, palm branches, and branches of leafy trees to make booths, as it is written. I need to go read Nehemiah there. Because when you go into the book of Revelation and look in chapter 7, and they're talking about the great multitude that no one could number, and they have palm branches in their hands. Will you gather the palm branches for booths? Could that be a signifier of when they're going to be taken up? Feast of Booths, or I don't know. I love how this stuff comes together. That's awesome. Okay. Where are we at? Her name was Myrtle. In clear view of this name was just a little rearranging of letters. In Assad the president of Syria? Yeah. My view is that Psalm 83 war and Isaiah 17 prophecy of Damascus no longer being a city are probably concurrent. I completely agree. I think they're going to happen simultaneously. It's going to be, actually I think there's going to be 3 wars all at one time. And the final part may be very short, overnight, as indicated in Isaiah 17:14 below. I actually had an argument with somebody about that. They said there's no way they can have a war in 12 hours. I was like, oh yeah, they can. I've seen it happen in Iraq. We can have a war in 2 hours. The battle only needs to be enough to kill a bunch of people, and then it can be called off. Isaiah 17:14, at evening time, behold, terror, and before the morning, the terrorizing Assyrians, are not. This is the portion of those who strip us, the Jews, of what belongs to us, and the lot of those who rob us. Is anybody else seeing what I'm seeing here? Whew. I'll definitely link this in the description. I'm going to do some more studying on this. That's crazy. At evening time, so the war will be at evening time. Wow. Isaiah 17:1, Damascus will cease to be a city, it will become a heap of ruins. Well, guess what I'm reading later? Interesting that Isaiah 17 speaks of terror. The President Assad was born on September 11th, 1965. 9/11. The edict letter issued by Haman in Esther had to be carried out. The difference was that the Jews were given the right to defend themselves, a contentious issue today. But now that they have the peace deal, I believe that the forthcoming Psalm 83, Isaiah 17 war will be a mighty victory for Israel, and its borders will be extended. Now we have Vashti, the replaced queen. And I apologize for my picture. My camera picture is going to be in front of part of this, but I can't raise this anymore. I would like to share a couple of final points about the replacement of Queen Vashti by Queen Esther. We know that Vashti was beautiful to behold. That was a weird noise. Uh-oh. Hold on. Okay, false alarm. All right. We know that Vashti was beautiful to behold, but in her beauty refused to come before King Ahasuerus. You go read the beginning of Esther and you'll see this story unfolding. Esther won an inner and outer beauty contest and replaced Vashti. There are two possible prophetic signals from this. Political, the United States, and religious, the widespread replacement theology church. Isaiah, which we know is not true. Isaiah 47 almost certainly relates to the United States. And in verse 5 we read, "Sit in silence and go into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For you shall no more be called the lady and mistress of kingdoms, foreign affairs." There are many millions in the United States who have had a strong heart for Israel, but the nation as a whole is moving away from its traditional strong support for Israel. Remember in Daniel 8? That nation with the prominent horn, the first king, and then it breaks apart. After that horn crumbles, it breaks apart into 4 nations. The Lord God will ensure that there are nations who, like Esther, will provide support, for Israel in its future hour of need. In the coming revival, the Holy Spirit will prepare a bride, hidden at present, but to emerge and keep its focus on the cross and Israel, where Jesus lived, died, and rose again. In Esther's time, it took a year to prepare the virgins for the king. The Holy Spirit will do, I believe, a quick work across the face of the earth. However, there will be another global church who will follow replacement theology, and even many evangelical and Pentecostal churches are heading in this direction. The prophetic message from Esther is that the replacement theology church, Vashti, will itself be replaced by the Esther church. Maranatha, Dennis Hart. Okay. Whew, that was a lot. And we're still not done. So I will link to this information so you guys can look this stuff up. This is wow. Purim. This is how Israel celebrates Purim. They dress up like zombies. They've basically adopted a Day of the Dead ceremony for Purim. What is the rapture? The dead rise first and are changed. Then war after we're gone. Something to think about. Something to consider. Okay, guys. Man, that took forever to get through that. So take the opportunity to go read through this stuff. Do research on this stuff. Do your own research. Dig deeper into these things. And dig into the stuff. I mean, if you got some dead time, like a day like today is great. Take some dead time and just start digging through different relevant references and digging into other people's blogs. Look at the information. You don't have to agree with it, but look at it and see if you can, glean something from that may help you go and do searches elsewhere and find all the symbolism and look at what it applies to. Obviously, we're being told a story. Obviously, something's going on, because last night, me and Fiery Girl got on this subject from another subject that actually kind of didn't fit into it, but it turns out it actually does, for the tribulation. Then Barry Scarborough puts up a video. Tim Henderson puts up a video. God's Roadmap to the End put up a video. Chad, I think, has talked about it. And now we're doing it. What's going on here? I've told you guys before, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. I firmly believe right before it happens, we'll know. This could be him telling us. I don't know. There's no way I can set a date because I don't know. But, wow. What kind of confirmation, how much confirmation does it take for us to get the hint that he's coming? Blows my mind, all this stuff that's happening. Okay, real quick, since we're still here, I want to show you guys something. So, do you remember what I told you about before? And this should be fairly quick. I told you about before about how, I'm combining it into one video because I'm running out of time. How I think there's going to be a break of time between the rapture and the beginning of the tribulation. I believe that's the seals. And here's why. In Revelation chapter 5, starting in verse 1, and I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll, written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. We know that person sitting there is God. He's the Ancient of Days. Then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the scroll and loose its seals. So this has to be God because somebody's coming to take it. Who comes and who takes it? Verse 6, and I looked and behold, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Then he came and took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. Something else interesting, if it strikes your fancy to do so, do a little look into these 7 spirits of God. Because here a while back, I got to thinking about this. This is a side note. I got to thinking about this, and I got to thinking, 7 spirits of God. Well, doesn't he have just one? The Holy Spirit? But I got to thinking, there's different aspects to that Spirit. And it may be certain of us with our different ministries and how we address things and how we do things, different spirits inhabit us as it pertains to that. Remember how I told you guys I had a revelation come to me here a while back about the life we live trains us for specific things that are going to happen over there? Like some of us who are trained for war may be the ones that are coming back. Because when you see the people that are coming back, it's only 10,000 of the saints. It's not 10,000 times 10,000. Anyway, that's a whole other study. But I just wanted to point that out. So, Jesus came and he took the scroll. Then you see all this stuff here. I've told you guys before, that to me, that's describing the church right there. Standing in the throne room. And earlier we went through scriptures where it showed that out of Revelation chapter 12. The child was caught up to the throne of God. Well, bam, there they are. And that's how that's us. Do your own research. You don't have to trust me. But then we go to verse 6, and here's something interesting. And this actually was reignited in me when the video I did yesterday about answering a question. Revelation chapter 6, verse 1. Now when I saw the Lamb open one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a loud voice like thunder, come and see. Another study you can do. Remember in Daniel, the 7 thunders? And he said, don't write down what they said. Go look in the book of Revelations. I believe 7 thunders speak in the book of Revelations. It's another study you can do. And I looked and behold a white horse who sat on it. And he had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. Some people seem to think this is actually the gospel. This is the church going out and conquering. I don't think so because, I don't know, it doesn't seem to fit. But nevertheless. When he opened the 2nd seal, I heard the 2nd living creature saying, come and see. Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on there to take peace from the earth. When they say peace and safety, sudden destruction will befall them. No peace. And that people should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword. Well, after the rapture happens, what do you think is going to unfold across the earth? They're going to lose their minds. It's going to be utter destruction and chaos. War like you've never believed. It's going to be mass destruction. There's going to have to be a recovery time from this. Watch where we go from here. Verse 5, when he opened the 3rd seal, I heard the living creature say, come and see. I looked and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on him had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. Universally, this is accepted as he's talking about famine. He's talking about the global economy is going to go off the charts. And you won't be able to buy a loaf of bread, but you have to pay $100 for it. Universally, that's what this is accepted as, which it makes sense. Now, have you noticed something already about the seals? 1, 2, 3. He's breaking them in quick succession. Bam, bam, bam. Hold on, I got to take this. Sorry, it was my dad. Okay, so we're seeing him break these seals in quick succession. Watch what happens here at the end. Because we know if there's mass destruction, famine, pestilence, all this stuff unfolding around the earth, it's supposed to happen right after the rapture of the church happens. Peace and safety, sudden destruction. Verse 7, when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature say, come and see. So I looked and behold, a pale horse, and the name on him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, war, with hunger, famine, and death, and by the beasts of the earth. So death, that could be pestilence and disease, and by the beasts of the earth. So the animals are going to lose their mind. Probably ain't going to have a whole lot to eat, so they're going to be killing humans. Verse 9, when he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. Now, we don't know where these people are coming from. Did these people just get killed in the beginning of the tribulation? Maybe. That was something going on where they got saved all of a sudden and then ended up getting beheaded because they were Christian. Because you know, once everything unfolds, it's all going to fly apart. They're going to kill anybody who says, even hints they're a Christian. Could be. It could be martyrs from way back when. Don't know. Verse 10, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? To me, this is an indicator that these guys have been hanging out for a minute. So it's probably everybody who's been martyred all the way up to that point, that this happens. Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren, who would be killed as they were, was completed. So that tells me this is all the martyrs from Stephen all the way up to now, maybe even before Stephen. So this is martyrs over all the time. They've been hanging out under the throne. And they're like, hey, how much longer? Take these guys out. We're done with this. All right. So quick succession, we're seeing all this stuff unfold. And that has nothing to do with the earth, that seal. So watch. So far, everything's been death and destruction. I looked when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. Now, when you go back in Matthew 24:29, you see the sun and the moon are blotted out. There's no light. And that's they're in that particular set of scriptures, they're talking about the end of the tribulation when Jesus comes back, because all eyes are going to see him. And the stars of heaven fell to the earth as fig tree drops its legs figs when shaken by a mighty wind. The sky receded as a scroll when it was rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. Massive earthquake. Shifting of the poles, which we see already starting. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and free man, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? Now, is that talking about the end of it? No. What have we been telling people? What have we been preaching to people? If we're suddenly removed, they're all like that. They're going to get it. Uh-oh. What happened? Then all this stuff is going to fly apart. Everything's just going to go nuts. Then they're going to be like, it's the end. It's the end. Not realizing what we told them. That's the beginning of the tribulation. Now notice, he stops at the sixth seal. Chapter 7, you see the 144,000 sealed. After these things, after everything up to the sixth seal happens, I saw four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, or the sea, or on any tree. So everything has stopped, probably by the space of 1 hour. Where do we hear that at in the book of Revelations? And all these other angels, or this other angel comes down and says, hey, don't harm the sea, the trees, anything, until we mark the servants of our God on their forehead. And I heard the number of those who were sealed. 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel were sealed. Got a lot of people out there claiming to be 144,000. No. I don't think so. You have to be of the tribes of Israel. So it names all those that were sealed. Then, after these things, I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, all tribes, all peoples, all tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, with palm branches in their hands. Remember all that, going and getting all these palm branches for booths, to make booths? Maybe. And crying out with a loud voice, saying, salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. All the angels stood around the throne and the elders and the four living creatures and fell on their faces and worshiped God, saying, Amen, thanksgiving, honor, power, and might. Then, one of the elders answered, saying to me, who are these arrayed in white robes, and where do they come from? And I said to him, Sir, you know. And he said to me, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation. So these people came out of the tribulation being saved. Who are the people in Revelation chapter 5 standing around the throne at the first seal? That's the church. Who are the people here just after the sixth seal? Totally different group of people. Can't overlap your seals. That's the other group. That's all the bulk people, the ones no one can number. In chapter 5, 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands. Chapter 7, nobody could number them. Two different groups of people. These are the ones who came out of great tribulation and washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Many of the martyrs may be in this group also. Therefore, they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple, and he who sits on the throne will dwell among them. They shall neither hunger nor thirst any more. The sun shall not strike them or any heat. For the Lamb in the midst of the throne will shepherd them and lead them to living fountains of waters, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. So, after the sixth seal, all this stuff happens. To me, that's the time frame. That's the break of time. That's the sudden destruction. Rapture, sudden destruction, don't know how long it's going to be, probably a little bit. Then, we go to chapter 8, the seventh seal and the golden censer. Now he opens the seventh seal. There was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And I saw the seventh angel who stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. So the seventh seal is releasing the rest of the judgments in the tribulation. Now we haven't heard anything from the Antichrist, because he hasn't come into his power yet. Oh man, I need to eat something. Then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers, all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. Now we have the 7 trumpets that come about. And it keeps on going, all the 7 trumpets. And after all this stuff happened, they did not repent of their murders and their sorceries and sexual immoralities and their thefts. Still refused it. Now we have the angel in the little scroll. So you see the rest of the tribulation unfolding here. And what does he do? He tells them to eat it, and he says, hey, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. Really? Now we have the 2 witnesses. And we know they're going to be there with for how long are they supposed to go? Nope, not that. When they finish their testimony, they're going to lie in the street for 3.5 days. I forget how long their ministry is. I don't know if it's going to be 3.5 years they're going to torment the earth or what, but that would be the first 3.5. That's another video too. I have a different theory about the 2 witnesses. Okay, so all that's happening. Then he blows the 7th trumpet. So all 6 trumpets get blown, and there's a break. There's stuff going on. Here's all the woes. The 2nd woe, 3rd woe is coming quickly. Here's all the woes now. Then he blows the 7th trumpet. We're well into the tribulation now. We have to be. Let's see. For anger, wrath has come, temple is opened, ark was showing. Then we have the woman and the dragon. See, now you can start to overlay a lot of this stuff. Satan thrown down to the earth. Now we're starting to, here's the first beast. That's one of the nations being described. Now we're starting to see descriptions of everything. The second beast, dragon, the lamb and the 144,000. Now we see a different scenario going on, because now Jesus is with them, and they're on the earth. He's on the Mount of Olives, or Mount Zion rather. So we see a different group, a different activity going on. The messages of the three angels, the harvest of the earth. This is the end now. So where was the other, let's see, 15. Now we have the 7 plagues. Yeah, Song of Moses, that was cool. I did research on that and found something very interesting. That's another video. So now we have the 7 plagues being done. Well, wait a minute. Thought we were done. Thought we were at the end. Oh, nope, still more time. Now we have the 7 bowls. So the first seals, the 7 seals, first 6 seals, opens up this break of time between the rapture and the beginning of the tribulation. The 7th seal opens the tribulation, and we see all this stuff unfold. And when you go and you read deeper into that, you'll see more highlights on it. Then you see after the trumpets, then you see bowls, or then you see the vials, then you see the bowls. You see all these different things unfolding, all the plagues. Now a lot of this is going to overlap in there, but clearly there's a timeline being established here. There's a timeline being built here. There's the great prostitute and the beast, fall of Babylon, rejoicing in heaven, the marriage lamp. That's the end. That's when he returns to take his thing back. So we go back up here. And the Antichrist does his thing in here somewhere. I forget where it's at. So to me, that's what that is. This 7 seals is that first break of time. Can't tell you how long it is, but I just wanted to share that with you guys. It's that first break of time at the beginning there after the rapture happens. And everything goes nuts. Everything just completely descends into chaos. But then you go 2 chapters later, and you see a lot going on there. Then 2 chapters later, the 7th seal is broken, and all the rest of the stuff starts to happen. The golden censer, the 7 trumpets, on and on and on, till the end of the tribulation. So that's what it says to me. Do your own research on that. I've taken up enough of your time. But do your own looking into that. But with what we see going on today, we look like we're about to step into that time frame. I can't tell you conclusively if that's what it is. I can't tell you exactly of what's going on, if this is it. I don't know. But I sure do know that there is a lot of very interesting stuff unfolding. You know, it could be, you know, what did we read at evening time? I forget where it was, Joel, at evening time. Everything will start to fall apart, sudden destruction or whatever. Could be the evening of the 10th, because Purim ends at nightfall on the 10th. And everything falls apart. Don't know, but we're on our way to it, and we'll see what happens, and we're going to keep watching. I love you guys. Sorry I'm making this super long, but I wanted to establish this very clearly, and I'm going to do my best to link a bunch of the pertinent information up here at the top in this description, so you guys can go and click on that and look at it yourself. But yeah, really, really interesting stuff to see here. And how interesting is it is that I have a conversation last night at 11:30, and then while I'm doing other videos leading up to this video, to study for this video, other people start doing videos about it. That's Holy Spirit. All right, guys, we will see you in the next one.